The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Thursday and it's the last Thursday in July. We're pretty much halfway through this big, beautiful year of 2014. So thrilled to be here with you, excited that we've got a really incredible show for you today. We've got two interviews in particular that we had so much going on earlier on in the week that we had to film some interviews with people, and we are going to show those to you today. I promised you that we were going to let you see Fiorella and Romario Snow, really incredible family, and we're going to be showing that to you later. So in any case, I'm a little bit behind on my slides, but thrilled that you guys are here. I want you to know that if this is your first time watching the show, this entire show is meant to be interactive. We want you to participate with us. So Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate and that you can watch the show, while I remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. Now, we have a Facebook page, and we encourage you to go to the Facebook page, and we want you to like the Facebook page while you're there. But on our website, there are more things to do there too. One of the things that I want you to check out is sign up for the free newsletter. It comes out once a month, but it's also going to give you an entree into some more things that we're trying to work on here, including some ways that you can be saving some money. So check out that free newsletter and share that with other people, please. That helps us, by the way, to stay on the air, because when we have more people sign up for the newsletter, then we have more people who will invest in us, and companies and corporations that will invest in us, because it's a way that they gauge that we have people who are watching and faithful watchers. So that's why we try to make it as exciting for you as possible, and it's why I ask you to sign up for that newsletter and why I want you to share that with other people. Okay, but also on the website, we have the live show or the ability to watch the most recently recorded live show. So you see a desktop and there's a computer sitting on the desktop. Just click on the triangle on the desktop and you can be watching the show. Now, I had somebody ask me recently, now, why do you bother telling them that? Because if they're watching the show, then they're already watching it. But a lot of people watch us in podcasts. So if you're watching a podcast and someday you go, you know, I want to watch the live show because I want to interact in real time, that we need them to know that's how you use it. But then to the side of the computer screen is the live feature, and it is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, barring, you know, technical difficulties that will sometimes occur. It's your opportunity to talk to us in somewhat real time. There's probably a minute and a half lag time, excuse me, and for some of you who are watching in very different time zones than ours, you might be writing in, and what it does is it caches it until I can be here again. But it's a way for us to communicate that's pretty easy and sometimes fairly close to being immediate. So there's a box there that says your questions. You put your cursor there and you start typing and you hit enter. Boom, that's it. You don't have to log in. You don't have to answer 72 questions. You don't have to give anybody your credit card number. It's just you asking the question and hitting enter, and it shows up here. So we don't know who you are. We don't know where you are. We're not asking for any money for you asking that question, which I absolutely love, and committed to doing that as long as we possibly can, right? So make sure that you're asking questions and letting us know what you want suggestions about. I mentioned the other day that right now I'm making the schedule till the end of the the year for different topics that we're covering. So anything that you're wanting to know more about, some of you have written in some suggestions, and really that's what we base the show on, is what you guys write in about. So make sure that you do send in your questions. And if you want us to get back to you about something, make sure that you include something, some way to get a hold of you, whether it's a phone number or an email or a snail mail address. We don't share that with the audience at home. Okay, so when you see me and I'm reading a question off and I don't put it up on the screen, that's why, because sometimes it has personal information that we don't want to share. Okay, I always like to remind you at the start of the show, and I'm kind of hurrying because we have so much to get to today, but I always like to remind you that while we will have a bunch of different experts here on the show, I'm not one of them. My credential to be able to sit in this chair is that I'm an autism parent. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and so I will be a lifelong student of autism, but I can assure you that I'm not an expert, and just when I think maybe I might know a little bit about this or a little bit about that, my son proves me wrong. He is 11 now and doing remarkably well, and I always remind you that's not because I was smart. It wasn't because I knew about autism or that I had money in the bank so that I could pay somebody to figure it out for me, because none of those things were true. There are some things I'm smart about and some things I'm not, but autism was something that I didn't know anything about, so I was starting from scratch. And we got great resources from other autism parents who, you know, there's that thing about reaching a hand forward and reaching a hand back. And I ask all of us to do that, including myself. You reach out a hand to get information. You have to be willing to ask for information and to receive it and filter it and decide what's right for you and take the responsibility of making that decision about what's right for you as an individual, right? And then you take action on it. And then eventually you start to see progress. And at the point when you can, and this is really key, because in the beginning you really got to focus on what's happening in your home. You know what I say about when your kitchen's on fire, right? We don't have time to talk about the drapes in the living room. We just don't. So you take care of your own family and your own situation first, but then when you make progress and things get better, as was told to me, you must pay it forward, which to me is reaching that hand back and taking the hand of somebody who's coming behind you and telling them it's going to be okay. You're going to survive this. You're going to be able to get through this. I promise you. There's progress to be had. There are things that you can do. And so I want you to know that I take this very seriously, because people reached their hand back to me and helped me. And so I want to reach out my hand to you and see if we can't help you find resources, get connected with people. You know, I may not know the answer. In fact, quite likely, I don't know the answer to your thing, but chances are I know somebody who does. And that's a powerful thing. And I'm so thrilled to be able to share that with you. So stick around, ask questions, learn, and give answers when you have them, because I know some of you know ever so much more than I'm ever going to know about autism. So participate with us, but don't mistake me for an expert. I like to act like I know what I'm talking about, but heaven knows I don't. But we're all in this together, right? I always say, si se puede, we can do this. We hold hands together. Okay, so we like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try. I'm already wiping away the tears today. Get all fatutzed. But we take these terms on and we try to figure out what this means in our lives today. So we give you the actual definition. We love to make fun of the actual definitions, right? Because, for heaven's sake, sometimes the definitions are about as useful to us as a bucket with a big hole in the bottom. I'm just saying. And so then we give you a working definition, and we like to watch the BCBAs as they break out into hives at the working definitions. What can I say? We have to have a place where we can start to begin to understand these terms, because it's time and it's money and it's the progress that we want to make. And by the way, that's for if you're a parent, a teacher, practitioner, or you yourself are on the autism spectrum. We want to make progress, right? We all want to make progress. So we need to understand what these terms mean today in our lives. How does this relate to me? What does this have to do with me? What does this have to do with my child? These are the questions that I always want to know. So that's why we do the jargon of the day. And I have to say, I couldn't be more proud of us that we're taking this on, all of us that didn't have a master's degree in autism. When you guys write in your questions now, Dr. Granpeche always comments, she's like, you have the most intelligent audience. You know, the fact that they know these terms, these are exceptional parents that they know these terms. And just makes me proud of all of us, because this isn't easy. This isn't easy. So today's term, it's one of the most important. We go over this term from time to time because it's vital to the progress that we're going to start to make today or yesterday, but not next week. At the very latest, we're starting today, right? So our term is FBA. Even this morning, I was writing this to somebody, and by accident, I wrote FBI, and I thought, something looks wrong there. Oh, I wrote FBI. Because when my son was first diagnosed with autism, and people would talk about that, I go, what's that FBI thing they keep talking about? Are they talking about, they're not talking about the FBI, are they? Are they bringing in an FBI agent to do, right? Okay, so what does FBA stand for? FBA, it's Functional Behavior Assessment. Okay, it's a multi-step problem-solving assessment process designed to determine the function of a behavior. Now, one of my pet peeves in definitions are in life in general, and I find this when you go into a store now and when you walk up to somebody and you say, there was like a year ago, I wanted to know where something was in a store, and I walked up to the sales clerk and I said, hi, you know, do you have whatever it was? I think it was like a gas can or something like that. And she said, oh, you know, we probably don't have those because they were put on, and the term was completely foreign to me. So let's say that it was like, you know, Shibuya, right? They were put on Shibuya. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know what Shibuya is, because she was done explaining to me. She was, oh, no, we probably don't have those because they were probably put on Shibuya. And I said, I have no idea what that term means. What does it mean? And she goes, oh, well, Shibuya is when you take the buoy and you Shiba it. Thank you. So much clearer now. When you define something, you're supposed to, if I asked what it meant, you're supposed to put in new words, not rearrange the words you gave me. So what's a functional behavior assessment? It's a process that assesses the function of a behavior. Oh, well, that's clear. I'm glad we took the time, right? What are you talking? What does this have to do with me? So let's move on to our working definition. In FBA, it's an essential process that helps us understand why a challenging behavior is happening so that we can change it effectively. Okay, so the example that I always like to use is when your car starts to make some noise or start to do something, you know, it's coughing when you're at a stoplight and you go, that can't be good, right? And it's not accelerating when you put your foot on the gas. So do you just immediately pull the car over and throw up the hood and start yanking hoses out and going, you know, I'm gonna, you know, put in a new distributor cap? The fact that I even knew that term is scary to me. Or do you drive up to a mechanic and you go, hey, you know, just put in a distributor cap. I don't want to discuss it. Just put in a new distributor cap. I'm happy to write a check for whatever you want. And then when they put in the distributor cap and that's not it, and they come back to you and say, oh, now it needs a radiator hose. You know, aren't you a little bit angry? Because the truth of the matter is that that's not the way we behave in life. What you would do, what most of us would do, unless you are a mechanic, you would take your car to the mechanic and you would say to the mechanic, hey, my car is doing this coughing thing. And what's the mechanic going to ask you? Describe what's happening. Describe what's happening. When does it happen? What happens when you do this? They're going to ask you a bunch of questions, right? Because they're not just going to assume that they know what it is. They may even have an inkling after the first thing that you say, because their mind is kind of going through the process and going, oh, okay, well, if the car is coughing at the stoplight, that could be this, 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 and this, right? But they don't automatically, well, a good mechanic doesn't automatically start ripping things out of your car and telling you to write a check. They're going to look at the car, right? They're going to put up the hood. They're going to look at the car. There's a whole process that they go through to determine what's really wrong with the car before they start to fix it. Why? because it's the most efficient use of your time and money. And it's the most likely thing to do to get the car actually fixed. If we're ripping things out and changing them, and we don't know that's what was wrong, chances are we could make it worse, and we could end up spending a great deal of money and taking that much longer before the car is fixed. Now, I'm talking about our car, but when in the realm of things, if I said to you, what's more important, your child and your child's well-being or your car, I'm going to guess you're going to choose the child's well-being, right? So when our child is engaging in a challenging behavior, we know that there's a process that we can go through and figure out, why is that behavior happening? What is it that's causing that behavior? How is that behavior being reinforced? How are we making sure that this behavior happens again? Because we will sometimes. So we need an expert, just like the mechanic, to lift up the hood on this challenging behavior and go through a process of elimination and gathering information to figure out, this is what's happening, which is why we're going to change this. And when we do, it's going to change that behavior. It's actually amazing how it works. And it is amazing to me how often as a parent, I wasn't, and even still sometimes now, I don't think about that. You know, we have a reaction. A behavior happens and we have a reaction. And sometimes, here's the truth of it, sometimes the reaction that we have ensures that that behavior will happen again and again and again. We are caught up in a process where we're making sure the behavior gets worse or continues to happen. And when we get an expert to lift up the hood and go, this is why this is happening, so let's not do this little thing over here that we don't particularly care about, we just cut this one little part out, suddenly this behavior doesn't happen anymore, and our happiness level goes, right? And our ability to communicate with our children goes, right? So FBA is that process that an expert, a board-certified behavior analyst, will go through. And here's the dealy willy with how this fits into our everyday lives, is that if your child is coming home with a note from a teacher saying, oh, you know, Rebecca had an incident today at school and she hit somebody, right? And the teacher sends that note home, and you're feeling like, oh no, what am I going to do? You know, what do they want me to do? What are they doing about it? And you're feeling that pressure of, oh no, because they're going to get moved to another classroom. There are going to be consequences that I don't agree with. You're starting to feel that stress. The FBA is what you have at your disposal, that you write back to the teacher and the principal and whoever's working on your child's case. Can we do an FBA on this behavior? And what will happen is that an expert, and most schools have access to a BCBA, who will come in, do the FBA, figure out why the child is doing that. They will change something. Your child won't be engaged in that behavior anymore, and your child doesn't lose their placement. That's just one example of how an FBA can empower you as a parent. But in your home, you know, if you think about right now, what is the behavior that you just would get down on your knees and say, please, can somebody help me turn this behavior around, because it's wrecking my day, it's wrecking my relationship with my child, maybe it's wrecking my relationship with my family. What is it that you want to change? The FBA is key. This is what you need to ask for from your team whenever you've got a challenging behavior. Can we do an FBA? I want to fix this. I want this behavior to change and be something more positive. That's what an FBA does for us. Powerful, powerful stuff. So use it. Know what that term is. It's a functional behavior assessment, and ask for it to happen, because it is the first best step to creating a behavior intervention plan that actually works. Yay! Okay, so moving on, we always have a question of the day for you guys. Our question today has to do with safety, of course. We want to know, what concerns do you have about safety? What are you worried about? What's the worst fear? What's the thing that's keeping you up at night that you have concerns about? I have to be honest, with my child, it's always when I'm not there. You know, is he going to know what to do? Is he going to have somebody who advocates for him? Is he going to be bullied? Is he going to be at somebody else's mercy? And will he be able to cope with it? Which causes me to be with him more than I probably should for his formative years where he's at right now. But I'm working on trying to give him those skills for when I'm not there. And it's a process, you know, but let's talk a little bit about today about what are your biggest concerns about safety, because I guarantee you there's a way to work on whatever your fear is to see improvement. It's all about the progress, right? Now, we always have a topic for the week, and as you guys know, this week our topic has been and will continue to be safety. It's so imperative that we get empowered and not be in the fear and the paralysis that can come with when our kids don't have skills in this area. So we'll continue to talk about that today. In fact, some of the different things that we have going on today. In just a few minutes, we're going to bring in Dr. Adele Nadowski. She's here with us for a segment called Real Progress, and we're going to be talking about the lessons that are available in the skills program. It's an online tool for autism that has a curriculum that involves safety issues. So she's going to be talking with us specifically about what those lessons are. A little bit later on today, we have Julie Markovitz. This is an interview that we taped on Tuesday. She is from, I don't know if you remember the old show from the late 80s, early 90s, Kids in Motion, that was on PBS channels, and it demonstrated, it was interactive, it was ahead of its time, and kids would dance and do all these wonderful things. It got them up off the couch, and boy, we need that now, and we need that for our autism community. And Julie and the people that she works with heard that cry, so they are coming out with something new that's Kids in Motion, but it's the 2014 version. So it's Marty Miracle and the Kids in Motion. It's really amazing, and it includes our kids, and it gets our kids moving. So pretty fabulous. Can't wait for you to see this interview that we did with her. She's very neat. Then we have the interview that we did on Tuesday with Fiorella and Romario Snow. Romario is the 18-year-old who went missing last month and was missing and on the streets for 20 days. And his mom was told that it was too late and that she needed to give up, and that most likely Romario had met with some terrible end. She didn't give up, and she found him. She found him after scouring the streets for 20 days. And they were here with us on Tuesday. We're going to play that interview for you. And then we're going to end the show, end the week, end the month with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox answering your questions about safety. So all of that and more. Stick with us. We're going to be right back after these messages.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to a segment that we call Real Progress with Dr. Adele. Dr. Adele Nadowski is here with us, and she is one of the co-creators of Skills. She is a wonderful expert who's been working in the field of autism for much longer than you would guess from her beautiful young face. But she's a wonderful resource, and I always like to say here on the show, because I'm going to be thanking her forever, that I've got to spend some time with her, and it's why I know more than I would have known doing this show. But the end result of that was that she made me a better parent. So she's remarkable, and we're so glad that we have her here with us. So welcome.
Thank you.
So thrilled to have you here, and you look all summery and lovely and fresh. It makes me makes me want to be young again.
At 9 a.m. driving here, it was 87 degrees out.
Yes, it's going to get very hot here today.
I had an iced coffee this morning.
Well, and you know, I know somebody from New York who was complaining the other day and saying about how horrible the weather is. And I said, isn't it you that was just complaining a couple of months ago about how you would take any kind of hot weather because you were buried under 7 feet of snow? And they said, why, yes, you're right. So
moved to California.
Yeah. Well, and you know, my thing is like the weather is the weather. You know, enjoy it while you can, because it'll change any minute now, and then we'll all be cold and miserable. So. Although not as much in Los Angeles. Although it still gets cold here.
Yeah.
It still gets cold here. In any case, thrilled to have you here today. We've been talking about safety all week long, and this is a wonderful topic to talk about with you, because as the co-creator of Skills, we're going to get to, before we're done, talking about some of the lessons that are available in Skills so that we can begin to teach these things. But you've also been a part of the research that they've been doing on some of the lessons, and I wondered if you could talk for just a second about some of the projects that you guys work on that have to do with safety.
Right. So a couple of years ago, I want to say maybe 2011, there was a study published by our group on teaching children with autism what to do when they experience chemicals or poisonous substances. Sometimes cleaning items left out, things like that. And then last year, we, under my supervision, Ryan Bergstrom has been running a couple studies, and he published one on teaching children with autism what to do when they get lost in public. And I know that we've created a really fun video on that, and I didn't realize you play it all the time.
We do play it all the time, but we're going to play it again anyway, because we can't play it too much, and it's fun to watch Ryan be silly. And this is vital stuff, because as we've been talking about all week long, you know, I think most of us want to focus on what can I do so that my child never is missing. That's the thing that we want to focus on, but even that is overwhelming to us. But I don't know that very many of us have the forethought on our own to say, and not only am I going to do that, but I'm going to teach my child skills so that if they do go missing, that they aren't missing for long and that they're safe. And just this case, and we're going to show the Romario interview in a little while. Romario is 18 years old, but has the functioning level of a 10-year-old, and for 20 days he wanted to come home. He had eloped, and for 20 days he wanted to come home, but he didn't know how to tell somebody that, and he didn't know how to tell them how to get in touch with his mom, so his mom combed the streets. And you know, you'll see in the interview that mom is real convinced that she's going to take some proactive steps to make sure that he knows how to tell somebody from now on.
Yeah.
And we're lucky that that story ended so favorably. So all of us need to learn from that.
Yeah. And our study was actually with vocal children, and we could teach them how to approach people and to get help when they're lost. But there's also kids that are non-vocal, and then that's an issue as well, including a kid that I've recently seen who was leaving the house early in the morning when his parents were still sleeping. And even though they were smart enough to have locks on all the doors that were supposedly, you actually have to get a key to get out of his house.
Yeah.
You don't just use the bolt like you would in a normal house. They have it to where a key is required so that he wouldn't be able to leave. And he was able to climb up on top of some high area with a chair early in the morning while everyone was still sleeping, find the correct key, let himself out, and then the doorbell rang, and it woke everyone up at 6 in the morning because he was found 3 houses down. And it was because he just wanted to go out there and hang out because there were things there that he was interested in.
Yeah.
And the key got moved again, and then the next day it happened again, even though it got moved. And so my suggestion was for them to get one of those ID bracelets. And there's lots of different ones. I know some kids won't even they won't wear things on their bodies, like getting them to wear glasses or bracelets is not going to happen. But there's one that I actually found on Autism Speaks that they say is you cannot get it off.
Yeah. The one that they fit Romario for now, it has a key to it, and it can only be taken off with a key, and it's waterproof. But there are lots of different kinds of them, and we were talking yesterday about the fact that it's kinder to give them a systematic desensitization so that they get used to it, not just slap it on them and go, well, I know you're frustrated, but you're just going to have to deal with it.
And that's easy to do in certain cases. So definitely it'd be worthwhile trying. And then there's now ones that I just saw with GPS trackers in them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's
they
impressive.
even do a good job of making them look stylish, so they don't look weird or anything.
It's really important that all of our kids are different, but the market is big enough. There's something that will work for your child, and my goodness, the peace of mind that his mom is going to have now, Romario, that he's got one that's going to work for him, and he was liking it. He thought he looked Joe Cool with it looked like a watch.
Yeah.
Now different kids are going to need different things, but. This is the crucial stuff.
So there's another study, though, I wanted to tell you, and it's in press right now.
Okay.
And it's on teaching children with autism what to do if if a stranger approaches them, basically.
Okay.
So it's abduction prevention skills.
Okay.
And that one should be coming out. I don't know how much longer it'll take, but it's coming out in the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis. And it's in press.
Amazing. So it's so wonderful that you guys continue to do research to find the most effective ways of teaching our kids these things, because we don't want to take extra time teaching these things. We want them to get it and get it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So why don't we take a look at the Lost in Public video.
Okay.
We'll see Ryan, and then we'll come back with Dr. Nadowski and talk a little bit more about some of the lessons that are available to you in skills having to do with safety. So take a look. This is Lost in Public.
Hi, I'm Ryan with Autism Research Group. We study ways to improve the lives of kids with autism. One of those ways is teaching safety skills, such as what to do if they get lost. We hit the streets to find out if anybody knows the correct answer on how to teach a kid what to do if they get lost. You're teaching a child
what to do if they get lost.
Yeah, you're trying to make them independent so they have the skills.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, give them a compass. Code name's good idea. Centurion.
We always have this whistle.
Oh, I'd also tell the kid, don't get scared. You're gonna be all right, man. This is just the world. This is planet Earth. You're at home here. As long as you're on planet Earth, you're at home.
As long as you're on planet Earth, you're home. This guy's a genius. With that flawless logic, he just solved our homeless problem. And as for the unique sounding whistle, although very cool, it'll probably only work if you're in close proximity. And a compass.
I have her call me.
Yeah, she doesn't have a phone. Parents are like, you're too young, you don't need a phone.
Establish some sort of like meeting place.
What if they can't find a meeting place? Because sometimes the kids get nervous when they get lost.
Yeah.
So like a backup plan, plan B.
Yeah, I don't know. No, not really.
Let them go and find a new kid.
Yeah, I've got a different one. Yeah.
There's not much you can do.
There is stuff you can do.
Like...
That's right, there is stuff you can do. In 2012, myself, along with my colleagues, Dr. Jonathan Tarbox and Dr. Adele Nadowski, published a study in the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis on teaching kids what to do when they get lost. The study demonstrated how 3 simple things, rules, role-playing, and praise, were effective in establishing these help-seeking behaviors. The benefit of this method is it doesn't require the child to have a cell phone or to have to locate a meeting place, which might be difficult if they're in a place like Disneyland. So once again, our method included rules, role-playing, and praise. Let's head back outside and learn about some of these rules.
They should yell out loud. Can't find my mom, help me.
Maybe yell out and scream for help.
All right. Scream really loud.
Correct.
And if that doesn't work, then...
I don't know.
Well, they could seek help from someone.
Find an adult.
Yeah, go to a vendor, you know, and say I'm lost.
Find an adult, like a police officer or a fireman or an employee in the store, and tell them, and maybe they can help you contact your parent. It really is that simple. You don't need to get your kid a cell phone. You don't need to establish a meeting place that they might not be able to find when they're lost and panicking. And you definitely don't need to give them a compass. All your kid has to do is 3 things. First, yell mom or dad real loud. 2, if that doesn't work, find an employee. And then 3rd, tell the employee they're lost. If they can't locate an employee, then tell them to find a mother with children, because that's probably the safest person to approach. I'm not saying that most men are predators, but most predators are men. That is a fact. I've read it in a fortune cookie. All right, so you've gone over the rules with your kid, and you've quizzed them, and they're able to tell you the correct responses so they understand the rules. But is that enough? How do you know they're gonna perform correctly in a real-world setting? You need to get out there and find out if they can actually do it. So you'd go over the rules and tell them, like, do this, do that, but how would you know if they actually knew what to do? If you wanted to shoot a basketball, and I just told you, oh, when you shoot a basketball, do this, this, and this.
I never practiced.
You never practiced, yeah, so it doesn't matter how many times we go over the rules or how well you can repeat them back to me. It's not going to change until you get on the court and practice.
Maybe do like a, you know, a little skit with them.
Like a role play?
Role play, yeah.
Your child, you're lost in the toy aisle.
Okay.
What do you do? I'm an attendant, walking around.
I'm lost, I don't know where my mom is. And then once you practice, you just like praise them, give them feedback, like, good job, you did it.
Reinforcing it.
Yes, this woman wins the prize for best comment. She pointed out the most important part of learning, reinforcement. Now, in our study, we used praise, but for your kid, you might have to use something else. You might have to buy them a treat, a toy, take them to their favorite restaurant where they can eat unhealthy food, and run around and climb through plastic tunnels that have the unmistakable scent of urine, and then play games, spending $20 to get a plastic little spider ring that they will eventually lose in a ball pit. The point is, you need to reward your child for correctly demonstrating what you've been teaching them.
Okay, I'm gonna call her. Hello, your child, Ryan Aloysius is missing. There you go.
Woohoo!
Yay!
So you tested it out
I'll
in the
try.
store to make sure I knew it. I had the rules,
Yes.
we role played it, and you made sure I knew it, and then like you said, good job, and all that. Now we're good to go.
We're good to go.
All right.
Done?
High five right there.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Give your child the rules, get out there and practice, and reward your child for responding correctly. For more information, please visit us online at autismresearchgroup.org. I'm Ryan Bergstrom. Thanks for watching. Yes, ding, no. Yes, this woman wins the first, yes, this woman, yes, this woman wins the best, yes, this woman wins the first place, yes, this woman wins, why can't I say woman? Yes, this woman wins, what's the line? Yes!
We all love to watch Ryan do his little fairy dance at the end. If you knew Ryan, you would enjoy it all the more. But a very serious subject, but I love the fact that he brings a fun light to it so that we all are willing to sit and listen to it, because this is important stuff. I was just talking with Dr. Nadowski about when my son was going through these lessons and how it was so very stressful on me, you know, the going through that, but my child was, you know, pretty hilarious. I've told the story before here on the show about when they allowed him with a therapist to get lost in a Target store, and I had to, you know, run away, and we had to see if, with a therapist, he was directing it, if he would do the right thing and go and find an employee. And I was saying to her, and I've told you guys before, that he walked right up to the desk like he owned the place and said, "Could you please page my mother? She's lost." that I was hiding behind the shopping carts and just laughing hysterically, going, "Oh, it's me that's lost. I see how this works." But at least, you know, he passed. He passed, and he passed because he was taught all the skills that he needed to have over a period of time and over a series of lessons. And it wasn't that the individual therapist just sat down and wrote those lessons. Those lessons came from someplace, and the very same lessons are available to you guys in skills. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that they'll find in skills and where they find the safety lessons.
All right, so within skills, it's in the adaptive curriculum. There's a safety domain, and there's a few lessons in there. One of which that is very key is safety awareness. And it's basically the same steps, and it's based off of a nice literature base of research, a lot of it produced by Ray Miltenberger and colleagues and some other behavior analysts. And it basically outlines the steps of teaching safety skills. The main procedure used is called behavioral skills training. And it involves providing instructions or rules, like Ryan was saying, and then doing some sort of modeling and role-playing, and then during the role-play providing feedback. So, and then they do all of that, and sometimes it's in more of a teaching environment where, like for example, when we taught what to do for, I'm trying to remember which one we did in the teaching environment versus out in public. I think for Lost, we actually did a lot of the teaching in the clinicals type of setting, and then we would go out and test to see, because otherwise the families had to drive places all the time, and it was a lot. In other cases, we do everything out in the community. But when you're teaching it, sometimes what the research has shown is that you need to use something called in situ training. Okay. Which is where you can go over these rules and you can role play and you can practice and you can provide feedback, and then when you get out into the actual natural environment where you have the opportunity to practice it, if the child doesn't actually engage in the correct behaviors, then it is no longer like an actual probe anymore. It becomes a teaching situation. So the therapist kind of steps in and says, wait a second, you know, what are you doing? What were you supposed to do? Stuff like that. So we don't allow them to continue to make mistakes when they're in public. We would stop the lesson and teach right there. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, that's what the in situ training does. Okay. And a lot of research has actually shown that in situ training is really necessary a lot of times for them to actually get it. Interestingly enough, with our strangers publication that's coming out, we had 3 participants and only one of them actually required any in situ training, and the other 2 participants did perfectly 100% great when they were out and being approached by different strangers. Well, I think that's because the training is so good and it follows a very specific guideline. You know, my son passed when he did his stranger danger test. I talked about that the other day, that I was practically had to be put on Valium. But he passed. You know, and he passed because they had led up to a lot of things and he'd been prepared and we'd rehearsed, and, you know, so he knew what to do, and he did not know that the person was somebody who was working as a therapist. He thought that it was a stranger who was approaching him. It happened to be Ryan. He was the actual stranger who came up to him, Ryan Bergstrom, and you know, we had some fears because Ryan had been one of our first therapists, but it had been 5 years earlier, and he totally didn't know who he was. He had no idea and was terrified, but he responded appropriately. Yeah, it was hard to find the people to be the strangers a lot of times. We'd be walking around the card office recruiting people. And also the previous research on autism and strangers skills used women to go and try to abduct the kids, and we knew that we needed to do research with men. So that made it even more difficult because we were limited to only men, which we know even in our field it's like a lot of females that actually do this line of work. So we were taking guys from the marketing and the IT departments and whoever we could recruit to come and be a stranger, because we needed novel strangers all the time. And it takes a person who's, you know, really willing to help, because you're in actual stores and things, and I know
at least once, a store that we were in had the phone up and was calling the police saying there's a creepy guy following a kid. And I said, no, they're with us. That's a therapist. And they went, okay. But they were going to call the police.
Oh, okay.
You know, so it's got to be somebody who's willing and mindful, and it has to be done just right. And so I guess my thing is, don't try this at home without some supervision or warning the store.
Yeah.
So
the other thing is the people that would actually step in and act as the strangers felt a little creepy too with what they were doing.
Yeah, it's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Because we used incentive lures of saying, like, I have this great thing, whatever. We would find out what their most preferred items were.
Yeah.
And whatever they were the most into, they would approach them and say they had it.
Yeah,
I think to come with them.
I think when Ryan went up to Jem, he said, I've got some Legos that were my son's in the car that I just want to give away. Would you like them? And Jem was like, "You're a stranger. Where's my dad? Somebody help me. This is a stranger. This isn't my dad." And he did really well.
That's great.
Yeah. So, but again, we can't assume that our kids pick this up. We must teach them these tools. If you think about it, why wouldn't we give them these tools? So again, that lesson, those kinds of lessons are available in skills. There are more lessons.
There's also things on safety equipment, teaching them to wear their seatbelts and helmets and how to put them on and off themselves and in what situations they should be using them and things like that as well.
So, because safety encompasses a great many things. There are also lessons about identifying when something is dangerous.
Yeah, identifying safe versus unsafe, street crossing.
And when relationships, what's safe and what isn't.
Thank you, yes, relationship-specific behaviors in terms of what to engage in, yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
And that kind of information, even telephone stuff, if someone calls, and identifying if the person you're talking to is someone you know versus a stranger, and what kind of information can you give. Like if they say, "Is your mom there?" and maybe she isn't, you're not going to say no, things like that.
Yeah, really, really important. And again, it's there for you in Skills. You can go to skillsforautism.com and you can do a free trial if you want to for 14 days. And there's so much more there in Skills aside from safety. But, for that alone, it's worth giving it a try and seeing what it is and making sure that you teach these things to your kids. Thank you for all the things that you do. We are not going to see Dr. Nadowski for 2 weeks now because we're on vacation next week, but we'll see you in 2 weeks, hopefully back here. We are going to take a break right now. And Emily, which video are we going to show first? Okay, well, why don't we take it's an opportune moment to show the Romario snow and the Fiorella snow. We've been talking about Romario all week long. We promised you guys this interview. He's 18 years old, on the spectrum. He has some verbal capability, so you'll hear him talking about his experience. But 20 days that he went missing. He talks about why he eloped. He was with his mom in a store, and you'll hear about that. And how harrowing, you can see it on his face, these 20 days were, and hear from his mom of what it was like during those 20 days when she was looking for him and not getting a lot of help and support. The story has a happy ending, obviously, because he is back with his mom, but it's clear to his family that they have some things that they're going to be changing. They're going to get some support from the autism community to make those changes, and they are very outspoken about the fact that they want to let everybody else know so that this doesn't happen to anyone else. So take a look. This was filmed on Tuesday. So Romario Snow and Fiorella Snow. Welcome back to Autism Live. As promised, we have a really wonderful, inspirational family here with us. Fiorella and Romario Snow are here with us. Did I say the names right?
Fiorella.
Fiorella.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, of course.
Okay.
You're a woman, so it would be Fiorella. But so you are Romario's mom.
Yes.
And as we mentioned before on the show, that Romario had a really remarkable journey. That he went missing, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. So first of all, I want to welcome you to our show. I'm so thrilled that you're okay. I just want to reach out a hand to you and say that we're all grateful that you're home and that you're safe and that you're okay. Want to talk first with Mom and have her tell a little bit about where were you on June 27th when he went missing?
Yes, we were in Chinatown area in Los Angeles doing our routine shopping, and there was a TV program and something bothered him, you know, some noise, some images, I have no idea what it was, but it's part of the disability. So I contacted the person there, the salesperson, and actually the owner of the place, and I said, is there any way that you could change the channel or turn it off or something, considering that nobody was watching it?
Yeah.
I have, you know, Romario, that he's in the middle of a crisis, and something is bothering him with that, and he refused to do it. So at that point, Romario noticed that it was a person that didn't want to comply, you know, with helping him out or support him. He sensed that, and since he saw that, he just eloped from the place. He ran off.
And what were you feeling in that moment? Were you just terrified?
I was terrified. We didn't know where to look for. You know, there's so many parking structures there, and you go towards one side, it would take you to another street.
And he just literally ran out?
He just ran out.
Okay, so, and you are a really young mom, even though he's 18 years old, you're a young mom, and you've got two little babies.
Twin babies.
That are just absolutely, you're a good big brother, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and they're gorgeous babies, so you had your hands full, and people need to know that this is not an easy thing for any of you. But so then you started on a journey of 20 days of racking your brain and walking the streets looking for this young man. You weren't going to give up no matter what?
No, we didn't give up. We decided to do the job, the detective job, us personally, me and my mom and the babies. We didn't know where to look for. You know, he had eloped one time before, and he went towards Santa Monica Beach.
Okay.
That was the first place where we headed to. He wasn't there, and then we just decided to walk all the beach and the pier, parks, hospitals, jails. There wasn't any park that we didn't look for.
Okay, so Romario, tell us a little bit about what was happening the day that you left. What did it feel like for you?
I feel scared. I was running away.
And do you remember what it was that bothered you that you decided to run away?
I was bothered, and a black man was hit in the eye.
Oh, okay. So you saw some violence, and it was disturbing to you.
And they got away, and they get away.
Okay, so you left. How much of those next 20 days do you remember?
I remember I was running away so many miles, too much walking. I was hurt. The feet, I hurt the feet, and the hands and arms, anything.
And do you remember how you stayed safe during those 20 days? Were there people who helped you?
They got people some change your money and safe.
So they would give you, sometimes people would give you some money?
Yeah.
Okay. And I know you were talking with me earlier about the fact that you rode on the bus system.
I take the Metro bus in 2 times.
Okay. Did you ever try to get home to find your mom?
I know it should be fine to be home.
It would be good to be home. But did you not know how to get home?
You don't get it to get home.
Okay. So just harrowing, and for you, you're trying to piece together what those 20 days were like. What do you think, Mom, in terms of, we know that he spent a little bit of time in a homeless shelter at some point?
No, he didn't. We're not
sure
of that.
Okay.
Yeah, he was just wandering around. He went to some fast food places. People were giving him cups with water, some bread.
So you did have some stuff to eat.
Stuff to eat, and I got some suitcase, and I got shopping carts.
Okay.
Walking so easier, but I'm tired.
But what about at night? Where did you sleep?
I sleep in tunnel or under the freeway and the bridge.
Were you scared?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it good to be home?
Homeless, definitely not.
Yeah, you were homeless. I can't imagine. I mean, I just want to cry thinking about it. And this is your baby.
Yes.
Thinking about him sleeping in a tunnel. How were you getting through those nights?
It was terrible. It was such a nightmare, you know, without having any support by the local newspaper and other local channels.
And really not from the autism community either, because we didn't know.
Right.
We didn't know. I'll tell you, both Nancy Alsbaugh-Jackson and I, since we have found out, it's kept us awake at night thinking about you being on this journey by yourself.
Yes, walking so early in the morning, 5:30 in the morning until midnight, looking at different places, searching around.
Terrifying. But finally, as we fast forward to the end of 20 days, and we had just been made aware the night before the fact that you were missing, Romario, and we were mobilizing to get the community together, and before we could get that done, you found him.
I found him. I was heading towards Venice Beach on July 17th.
Yeah.
It was approximately like 6:37. That was because we already had searched Santa Monica Beach, Malibu, Palos Verdes. So we decided to go Venice, and we didn't want to take the freeway, just the streets, just to keep our eyes open around. And then we noticed that he was standing there, and it was pretty shocking to see him standing with a shopping cart because he couldn't stand by himself anymore. So he had that shopping cart as a support, like a walker.
But you recognized him.
I recognized him immediately.
And I can't imagine what that felt like, but when you tried to talk to him, what happened?
I was asking him basic questions to see how he was mentally. I asked him first for his name, and then he said Venice and Centinela, which is the place that we located him. And I asked him, how old are you? And he said Fairfax High School, the high school where he attended.
So he was giving information, but not necessarily the right answer to the question.
Right.
But do you feel like he recognized you in that moment? Was he glad to see you?
He was glad, yes. And his condition, you know, was terrible. He was critically dehydrated, sunburned. He had, you know, bruises in his eye and his nose because someone hit him because he wanted to share a place to sleep at night in a tunnel. And I guess that place was of another person. So, you know, he got hurt by that individual.
Is it hard to talk about when you were missing?
I know.
Yeah, it was hard. And I think hard for Mom too, but you're glad to be home?
Yeah, well, I'm glad.
Yeah. So moving forward, because this isn't the first time that he's run away.
No, it's not.
So now we got to take some new action to make sure that he's safe. And you've learned a lot through this process. We're learning with you about what needs to happen. And you and I had a conversation the other night because as we reached out to a couple of advocates, they were talking about how important it is because Romario's 18 for him to be conserved.
Right.
And you've had trouble. Tell the folks at home about when you've been talking to the police officers, there's a little bit of a disconnect because they see an 18-year-old.
Right.
They see a handsome young man. And they see a handsome young man who's talking, so the presumption for them is he's able to do everything that an 18-year-old might want to do. Maybe he wanted to leave.
Right.
And then when you're telling them that, you know, that he doesn't have all the abilities that we need for him to stay safe at 18, are they a little bit disbelieving?
They are disbelieving and insinuating many other things. One of them, he probably went out with a girlfriend, or maybe he went out with his friends. You know, his only friend is his plush toy Nemo. Yes.
Yeah.
And he has all of us that we care for him.
Yeah.
But you know, his mental capacity is like about a 10-year-old.
And getting the police to understand that is an uphill climb. But one of the things that we've been told by the different advocates is that if you conserve somebody, that's the first indication to first responders that you need extra help and support and that they can't be asking these inappropriate things.
Right.
And this presumption that, you know, it was to go meet a girl. So it's one of the things that we need to make sure happens for all of our kids. And you're taking steps now to ensure that Romario gets conserved.
Yes, we are.
And, you know, we've got some different people that are working with you to ensure that that happens. We're going to give more information throughout the week about how you can get help doing that for those of you at home. But this is an important step. And if you have a child that's 16 or older or is about to turn 16, this is a conversation you need to be having as a family about, is it time to seek this? It's not going to be right for everyone, but conserving an individual lets you have rights as a parent.
Right.
You've had some difficulty since he's been home of them not wanting to disclose things to you. We don't need to get into, his personal business, but you're his caregiver.
Right.
You make
24/7.
decisions for him.
Right.
About his welfare. You need to be privy to everything that's going on with
Right.
him.
I didn't get any support from the law enforcement, insinuating any other things, and doing all these presumptions, that I know that they're not true.
Right.
Because they don't understand. We have to, make sure that the law enforcement understands also conditions of an autistic individual.
Yes. Yeah. And that whatever went on during this 20 days, the way that the police are talking to you, let's say this, they're talking as if he's an 18-year-old, 19-year-old who might be involved in some negative things, where if it were an 8-year-old who were missing, they would never be asking those questions.
Right.
So this is the first thing that we need to do, is make sure that you have the conservation papers so that they will speak to him and treat him with the dignity that he needs to be treated, and treat you the same way. But then in addition to that, we want to make sure that you are hooked up with some support and services so that we can turn this equation around, so that if he goes, you've got better ways of finding him.
Right.
And that maybe some ways so that we can encourage him to not run when these things happen.
Right.
But I noticed that you're wearing something there that's new that you didn't have on when I saw you last. What is this thing on your wrist?
Show it to our new friend.
You like it?
Yeah, I would like it.
It's very cool. It's very stylish. And so what is this device here, Mom?
This is a GPS device that in case that he elopes again or runs away, it would be much easier, effective way in how to locate him within minutes.
And so this particular one is called an eye lock. We're going to be talking about them on the show. So if he goes missing again, you're going to be able to be hooked up with almost immediate information to tell where his whereabouts are. I understand that this eye lock was given to you with the support of Autism Care and Treatment
Right.
today. So a remarkable device. We're going to want to check back with you
Yes.
and know how this works. And is it comfortable for you? It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, I think it's styling. It's kind of, you look like a cool dude with a cool watch. Because what's nice about it is that it just looks like a really stylish watch, and
Right.
it has the time on it, so he can be checking the time, but it's got more capability with it as well. So we want to say thank you to iLock, and thank you to
them,
Act
yes.
Today
Thank you.
for these things. Now, I'm assuming that it's got a way that we ensure that it stays on.
Right. It's very interesting that it has here a lock.
Okay.
That there's a key to it, and then we'll just
Okay,
case.
and I understand it's waterproof,
It's
too, so
waterproof.
he can shower with it on. That's
Right.
not going to be a problem. It'll probably take a little while to get used to it, and you might even have to work up to him having it on full time, but this potentially has the ability to save his life.
To save his life, yes. And I encourage other parents also to look for resources and to be more aware of their kids, because 5 years ago or 3 years ago I wouldn't have thought that he would be eloping, and I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah. And then what are we, I'm sure that we're going to do some work in terms on giving him language to be able to tell you when he wants to leave, but also are we going to work on some skills for if he gets lost to know how to come home?
Yes, we're going to be working on that.
Okay.
Yes.
And any help that you need, I said to you the other day, you are never alone in
Thank
this
you.
again.
Thank you.
That anything ever happens again, you're going to call us, and
Yes.
we'll help to mobilize much quicker.
Much quicker than law enforcement, yeah.
I can't live with it to have you out there by yourself.
Yes, because I asked, these 20 days when I've been searching and I've seen the law enforcement, and I had my posters with me, missing person, critical missing. I was asking the law enforcement, do you happen to know about Romario, that he has autism and he's missing? And they had no idea what it was. And there was an officer that didn't even know what autism was. It's terrible.
It's devastating.
It is.
And we were talking earlier on the show about comparing this to when Avante went missing.
Right.
And the whole city mobilized.
Right.
Did you just think that we didn't care? Did it feel like that?
I felt like that. I felt, all the doors closed, the local newspaper, saying it's too late.
Well, And you proved everybody wrong, and you did this on your own.
Yes,
I
I
respect
did.
and admire you so
Thank you
much,
so
but I
much.
want you
Thank
to
you.
know
Thank
we
you.
did care. We
Yes.
do care. We care so deeply.
Yes, thank you.
So nobody, anybody listening, don't do this by yourself.
Right.
You don't have to do it by yourself, but man, look at you, warrior mom, that you went out and found him.
I found him
20 days
20
later.
days.
We don't give up.
Since that night, that he went missing. That night until midnight, searching all over. It was hard because, it's
Yeah.
dark out there. You know, he might be hiding in a tree, like he mentioned, in a tunnel. Living, that experience of him living like a homeless, it's pretty traumatic.
But you had two babies.
Two babies
at home.
searching out for him. They could not talk and express because they're only 9 months, but they could also sense it. They were looking at, it was so heartbreaking
They were missing you.
Looking at the window, looking at the
Yeah.
door, looking out for him.
Yes, and Abuelita was missing you too.
Everybody,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate all the support. You and Miss Nancy, Wanda also, and Miss Sonia, that she also was, one of the ones that placed this, notification about critical missing in her Facebook page, and that's how Wanda
found out about it, and then Wanda told Nancy, and Nancy told me, and we all got moving.
Right. Orna, also a friend of his, also very nice. Orna. Yes, very nice.
Okay.
Yes.
So what's the best part of being home? What's your favorite thing to do at home?
Playing games.
Okay, what kind of games?
Temple Run 2.
Oh,
but I love it.
Temple Run 2. Very cool. And what else do you like to play?
Basketball.
Basketball,
In the park.
You love to go to the park.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
With your friends.
Yes. Wonderful. We want to work on getting you some more friends too, besides just
more
the plush toy.
The plush toy, yes.
We are so out of time. We need to let you guys do what you need to do. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for not giving up on any of us, so that we can enjoy this moment with you and that you're safe at home.
Yes, we want to say a special thank you also for all the support, all the interest, and giving us the opportunity to spread out the word to many other parents.
Okay, it's a happy ending story.
Happy ending story.
It. All right, we're going to continue to cover this story and let you know updates about how things continue to go, but we're going to go back to our show live. Stick with us. A remarkable young man and a remarkable mom who wasn't willing to give up on her child. We wish them nothing but the best, and we know that there's a lot more to this story and a lot more that continues to unfold, because this experience isn't over for Romario. He is still in a position where he's having to be questioned by the police about what happened while he was missing, and his mom's got a lot of work to do to conserve him and make sure that he is protected. So we'll continue to cover this story as it unfolds, but we want to take a little bit of we're not going to show the A word today because we got too much to do today. So unfortunately, if you've tuned in for the A word, you're going to miss it today. That's okay. They have their own channel. You can watch the whole thing. But we're going to shift gears a little bit and join an interview that we also did on Tuesday with Julie Markovitz. And she's a remarkable woman with great vision about getting our kids up and moving. You probably remember the show Kids in Motion. Well, she's got something on the horizon for us to see now. So take a look. This is Julie Markovitz talking about the new Kids in Motion. Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm so thrilled because we have here with us somebody who is just so much fun, and you may remember her. Julie Markowitz is here with us, and if she looks familiar to you, it could be that you watched a show called Bodies in Motion at one time.
Kids in Motion.
Kids in Motion, excuse me. Well, Bodies
okay.
in Motion, different thing. Kids in Motion, that's what I meant to say. But a very fun show that you were very involved with a couple of years ago. Tell the folks at home about Kids in Motion if they missed it. They can still see it on YouTube. Right. Tell them about what the whole premise was. Refresh their memory.
Okay. Well, many years ago, I've been dancing since I was a little girl. And when I was in college, I did I had an internship teaching creative movement to children. And so I studied child development and dance. And I loved the creative movement work that I was doing. And it was the hardest job I ever had. It was a home for abused children. So it was a very meaningful work. And so from there, I graduated, and then I started creating this Kids in Motion program where I brought it to many different schools, churches, and temples. And while I was teaching, I thought this would make a fabulous home video program. So I was very eager beaver in my 20s, and I wrote up a treatment for it, and I pitched it to an independent producer, George Page, who's still my partner. He loved the idea, and we made it happen. It was really an exciting thing. It was my dream come true. It wasn't like boom, boom, boom. It took a while, a lot of rejections, and then yes, we got the yes from CBS Fox Video, and they had a division called Playhouse. I think it was CBS Fox Playhouse, yes. And we released 2 videos for them, and they said, you need to get a star to be your host, and you need to get a musical act to sing your title song. So we got Scott Baio to be our host. He was fabulous, and then we had the Temptations sing our title song.
Which is amazing.
I know, I got to be the Temptations. It was so much fun. And then we got the wonderful children. They were all students of mine at the time. They probably are all grown up with little children now. Yes, they are, definitely. And that was back in the late 80s. And it went on to win a lot of awards, which I'm very proud of. And I also wrote a Kids in Motion book. We released a CD. And then the book and the video went out of print down the road. And in that down the road period, I got married, had kids, and I was involved in my personal life with my children. But the CD is produced by Greg and Steve. You may have heard of them. They're very well-known children's performing artists, and they still are big on the children's music scene. And they have kept the music alive.
How fun.
Thank you, Greg and Steve. And it's still available for purchase. People are still buying it and still reviewing it. So I have reviews back from the 80s all the way to 2014.
How fun is that?
That's what we shot it at KCET, and the executive in charge there, that's what he said, you are ahead of your time, because it was an interactive program that encouraged, it was before the video game.
Yeah.
And it encouraged children at home to participate, to get up off the couch and dance and move along with the songs. They were all, what it was song-based, all original music, and about topics that children are very interested in. Animals, animal action, where they moved like animals. Tummy tango, where they moved like different kinds of food. Beanbag boogie, where they would balance beanbag on different parts of their body. And there wasn't a right or wrong way how to move. It just encouraged joy of movement. So it was a big hit, and the parents were participating with their kids, and we ended up doing live shows. I had a band for a while, and I was doing live shows all over the country. It was very exciting time.
And it was accessible. I mean, I think that's one of the things that we have to talk about as we move the conversation a little bit further. Because there wasn't a wrong way to do it. It made it accessible. It was fun, and it encouraged everybody to move. Something that we see now, that kids who did that are healthier and happier and doing better in school because of that. And if we don't have that, then we have the rising obesity that seems to be so prevalent. Okay, so what I want to do is take a trip back in time, get in our little time machine here, and we're going to show you guys a clip to refresh your memory of what this looked like in the 80s. But then we're going to tell you the fresh new look that you're adding to this now in this wonderful year, and what that has to do with autism, because this is all going to come together full circle, and you guys are going to love this. So take a look. This is what Kids in Motion looked like back then.
About your favorite food, what's the shape of an apple? Think about your favorite food, what's the shape of a pretzel? Think about your favorite food, what's the shape of a banana? Think about your favorite food, what's the shape of a donut? Let's all do the tummy tango. Think about some food that moves. Show me wiggly spaghetti.
Very fun. Brings back memories for me, but it must bring back even more memories for you.
It really does.
And as you watch this, as a parent, you realize it's so creative because the kids are being asked to move like things that they're familiar with, because, you know, food and the animals and all the things that you do, but they can get really creative with it. It's okay if they get a little silly, and we're getting them
to... We encourage silly.
Sillies are good at this point.
Silly is good.
Yeah. So we see the benefit of this now. I think everyone in the year 2014 realizes how important it is to get our kids moving, and no group more important than our kids with autism. There was a study that came out just last week that we were talking about on the show, that they have a higher incident of having obesity even than the typical average in the United States, which we already know is high. And we also know that when our kids get a chance to move their bodies, that they are able to key into things mentally in a better, stronger way. So this is key for our kids. So you've got a new project that's taking what you've already built and adding to it, and it's including our kids. So I can't thank you enough. Tell us what this is going to encompass.
Well, we're in the beautiful phase of development right now. And it's going to have the heart and soul of what Kids in Motion is, which is incorporating concepts that children love and are familiar with. And at the same time, we're doing a whole series. So rather than the original Kids in Motion being random songs that they all loved, this will be series-based, theme-based. So each show is going to be about one will be about the ocean, one will be about space, the desert. So we'll go into further depth about each concept, and each place, so that they'll actually be learning really cool things along the way and expressing through movement. And again, there's no one way how to express. Let's say it's the ocean, moving like water. Like you'll hear, there'll be sounds that will encourage movement, and they'll experience it the way they're going to experience it. And it'll be different than what their friends are doing, and that's okay.
Yeah. And what's lovely about that is that not only does it let everybody be involved, but for the neurotypical kids, and I hate that term, but for the kids who aren't having extra challenges developmentally, when they see that everybody gets to do something different, it helps our kids to be included when they're doing something in their own special, unique way.
Exactly.
So everybody's learning.
We really encourage individual, I say we, because now I have a lot of different people who are teaching, not just my work, but their own work with children that I've mentored, but to encourage individual expression. It's really, really important. And along my path, I became a certified yoga instructor, and I've incorporated a lot of yoga into my Kids in Motion work, and I find that the yoga just slows everybody down, and the children get in touch with their breathing, and still they're connecting to nature. And the things that we connect with Kids in Motion through movement, this is a little bit more like making shapes with the body, as opposed, you move into the shape, but then you hold the shape and breathe. So it builds focus, and it relaxes everybody. And I find that the parents really enjoy doing this with their children. And when I have children who are on the spectrum participating in my yoga classes or my movement classes, they're enjoying themselves so much. And we make sounds too. We incorporate our own sounds. So if it's something that, if they're moving like the wind, they're making wind sounds, and they're moving like the wind, and it can be a big wind, and then the wind calms down, and maybe they're making their body like a leaf on a tree, and then the leaf falls down. So it just connects them to nature, to each other, and to themselves.
Yeah. You know what I love about it? It's a different way of looking at something. And so often our kids need a different way of looking at something to be able to communicate and to be able to feel at one with what's around them. I was talking to my son who's on the spectrum last night, 11 years old, and I said to him, as I do from time to time, like once a year, I'll say, so what is autism? And I let him tell me from his perspective and see how it changes.
Cool.
And he said to me, it's seeing the world in a different way. Which I loved,
that.
right?
We all should see the world in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. And
actually, we all do.
And I think we do.
We all do.
I think we do. But being able to express that and to express it in a group of people, but to be able to express it physically, and that the way that you see the world, it's important for our kids to be able to have that outlet and be able to use their bodies in a way that helps them stay healthy and helps them express themselves. So this is a mission of the highest order. I'm so loving. So tell the viewers what this mission is being called.
Well, we've partnered with the wonderful Jimmy Osmond.
As in the Osmonds.
Yes,
as in the Osmond brothers.
Yes,
as in Donnie Marie and all the other
all
Osmonds.
of them, yes.
It's
the wonderful
amazing.
family. And so Jimmy created a great little character called Marty Miracle. And Marty Miracle is going to be our host.
Okay.
And he's this very cute animated character, and he's going to pop in and out, and he's going to share all kinds of cool things, and he brings all kinds of optimism to the future for children about how bright their future is, and he's going to be for those familiar with the original Kids in Motion, he'll be similar to what Scott Baio did. Scott Baio popped in and out of the show, encouraging the viewers, because it really involves the home viewer participation is what it's all about.
Yes, absolutely.
It's what it's all about.
It's interactive.
So yes, so Marty is going to be that cute little character doing that, and then we'll have a group of kids, and they'll be interacting. There'll be kids on and off the spectrum, and we see it's going to be for children ages 2 and up. I say up. I'm not even putting an end on it because I think 2 to 92.
Right.
That's how I work.
Right.
I teach family yoga, and I have grandparents practicing yoga with their little children, and it's very sweet. So there's no age limit, but the 2-year-olds will just dance and jump around and do whatever they're going to do, and there'll be yoga in the program as well now. So we did a little yoga in the original Kids in Motion, but there'll be more here.
Okay, so if people want to know more about what you do and about this Marty Miracle, where do they need to go to find out more information?
Well, I'll be updating my website, and I think they're going to be sharing that with everybody. Right now on the website, it just tells history of me and my work and where you can find me, and I'll be updating that. We're in the early phases of, we just got some funding, which we're very excited about, for our first 3 shows in our series. So we're going to hopefully start production in the fall.
Okay. And there may even be a way that everybody can get involved to help make more than 3 episodes.
Oh yeah, we're planning to do a whole series.
Okay, so we're going to keep you guys posted, because this is like a favorite of mine. I am loving this project so much. So this is something that we're going to continue to talk about and hear more about, because our kids need to move. And how wonderful if we can be able to do this. We could do this with them, because all of us could stand to move a little bit. I speak for myself as well. Right? Great project. They're learning on so many different levels. So important. I thank you so much for all the work that you're doing.
It comes from my heart.
And the expertise that you bring in this area too, but the willingness to have the forethought as you're even starting this project that you want to help our kids is just remarkable.
Absolutely. It's all from the heart.
We appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Stay tuned, keep posted, and we're going to update you on Marty Miracle.
And Kids in Motion.
And Kids in Motion. All right, we're back to Autism Live after these messages. Welcome back to Autism Live. So that was Julie Markovitz, an exciting project that she's working on. But right now we have with us Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. Welcome back to the show.
Great to be here.
We call this Science Beat because you have a fabulous mind for science. You're the head of research and development here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and also the director of the Autism Research Group. So I can't think of anybody that would be better to talk to us about what research is out there and help put it in the context that we can understand. And I mentioned to you just now, briefly, like 7 seconds ago, that we've been talking about safety all this week. So want to talk to you a little bit about safety and those kinds of things, but I'd like to start, if we can, with some questions that we've had come in so that at least we make sure that we get those in. So somebody wants to know, what are the standard guidelines to determining if a child is high functioning?
Right.
My child is often called high functioning, but doesn't seem to function very well to me, with extreme behaviors based often on communication difficulties, self-regulation, and other lagging skills. He needs help at almost 6 years old to dress. He eats with his hands, needs constant supervision, and has no friends. Yet, because he has a special interest in language and high academic ID, he is called high functioning. He was diagnosed recently, very late, because of speech and me not knowing the right words like autism to get the school pediatrician psychologist to pay enough attention to us. I'm starting to resent the term because it has and is keeping us from getting him the help that and care that he needs. This is a really interesting question because it's a term that gets thrown around a lot.
Absolutely.
High functioning, high functioning. And I know as a parent that if I'm talking to somebody, people ask me, well, how is your child? And, you know, is he high functioning? Is he low functioning? And I must admit that I get involved in that I'll say, how is your child doing? And I have an expectation that they're going to say certain words. And honestly, it doesn't help us to identify how our kids really are.
That's right. Absolutely. And I'm glad your viewer asked this question, because it's one of those terms that gets thrown around all the time. It's actually not a real term in psychology or in autism. It's just sort of a casual, sort of folk type term that, it kind of means something. We all kind of get what high functioning versus low functioning means, but really it's really vague, and it's not, those terms are not applied consistently, and there is no standard for how you decide or how you label someone high functioning or low functioning, because it's not even a real label. It's just something that's thrown around casually. It's
not in the diagnostic criteria. There's not. No.
So generally speaking, though, usually some of the I don't even want to call them standards, but some of the variables that are associated with those labels are if someone scores relatively high on an IQ test, let's say an intelligence test, they're more likely to be labeled as high functioning. As your viewer mentioned, if they have pretty good language and communication skills, they're more likely to be labeled as high functioning. And the opposite of those are true for someone being more likely to be labeled as low functioning. But honestly, these are terms that we try not to even use in ABA, because honestly they're kind of politically incorrect and kind of strange sounding, and they're very, very likely to make someone feel bad or feel good for the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah.
What we're more interested in is exactly what your viewer is emphasizing, which is what are the areas of need that my child has, right? What are the areas of need that my child needs some support on? What are the skill areas that can be enhanced so that my child can be more independent and more successful and happier in their life? So honestly, we don't even bother with the high functioning or low functioning. We just want to know, how can we help the kid?
And I think as parents, it's a direction that we need to go in. I will say that a couple of weeks ago we had Coach E, Elaine Hall from the Miracle Project on, and she said something that rang a bell in my head, because we were talking to her about her son and how is he, and she said, I don't use these terms because here's why. She said, if you took my son and put him in a calculus class and put him with a bunch of neurotypical people, you would look at him and say, he doesn't have skills in this area, boom, he's low functioning. And you would say that everybody else in the room is high functioning. functioning. And she said, but it's contextual, because if you took him on the side of a mountain and said, we're going to go camping for 2 days, and you took a bunch of typically developing kids his age and said, let's put the gear together, he would know exactly what to do and be able to instruct everybody so that they would be happy and safe. And in that context, you would look and go, he's the high functioning one.
That's right.
So what are we talking about?
Absolutely.
And that, I just went, well, doesn't that make sense?
That's right. And you know, challenging behavior is another really important factor, and I think your viewer was alluding to that too, and that is, I've seen plenty of kids that everyone labels as high functioning, but they have so much challenging behavior, so much either aggression or obsessive behavior or ritualistic and routine oriented behavior or control oriented behavior that, sure, they're very smart, they have great intelligence, great language, but when it comes to day-to-day independence, they can't get anything done because their challenging behavior gets in the way so much. And the opposite I've seen as well plenty of times, which is kids who are low functioning, meaning have relatively low scores on an intelligence test, relatively low or delayed communication skills and language, but actually do really well if they're given a small amount of supports. They can communicate their basic needs and desires. They don't have a lot of challenging behavior. They have some meaningful leisure skills, and actually, in terms of their day-to-day functioning, are doing their life is actually pretty good quality of life.
Yeah.
So it's all it's all relative.
I think about Carly Fleischman, who at 11 years of age, they had pretty much all but given up, and would have considered her profoundly affected by autism, had never spoken, had never communicated in any way, shape, or form, had tried all these different things, and it wasn't until she was 11 years old that she took the computer away from the person who was working on it and typed out, "My teeth hurt, help me."
Really?
And now Carly, she's probably 16, 17 years old, has a world following, has a book that she wrote with her dad, and is a regular blogger. And, she uses a keyboard to communicate, but brilliant young woman. And it's such a disservice to think, that at any point we could have looked at her and thought, oh, it's the thing that Nancy Alspaugh Jackson says, which we should always presume intelligence. But around that, we have behaviors.
Absolutely.
So for me, for this viewer, and I hope you're still watching because you wrote this in about 20 minutes ago, I hope that you're watching, because let's start to talk about some of these behaviors that she's listing and give her some hope that, if you're just starting the process and you just got diagnosed and he's about to be 6, I'm sure you're going to get bombarded with, and I can feel it already in your email, that you're calling it very late, and people are going to tell you it's very late. I don't think it's very late.
Yeah, it's absolutely not too late to get some really meaningful behavioral support and to get some really meaningful and powerful changes in your child's behavior. Not too late at all. In fact, honestly, it's never too late to make meaningful behavior change.
Yeah.
I've told this story before. I've worked with 60-year-old individuals diagnosed with profound intellectual disabilities who had almost no skills, and within 6 months of working with them, we can make some real meaningful changes.
Yeah.
And so that might be the toughest case scenario. So,
and some of the things that she's talking about here, not being able to dress himself, eating with his hands, not having friends, these are things that you can get in there and do, especially the adaptive skills, the eating with hands and the getting dressed, and fairly quickly. Those aren't the harder things. Friends, it's much more complex, so that might take a little more time, and you got to find the right people to work on it, but very accessible to work on those kinds of things. But I love the fact that it sounds like there is an interest in language and there's an interest in speech, but she says that what got caught at this age was a delay in speech.
Right.
And that can be helped as well, too.
Absolutely.
I'm always amazed by the things that you guys can do, but it will require doing some quality ABA over a period of time.
Absolutely, yeah. An hour a week is not going to be enough to make a real difference on any major behavioral challenge. And I don't care if you're doing ABA, if you're doing speech, or anything else. You need to have a little bit more intensive program. And it may take 6 months, 12 months, but you absolutely can make a huge difference for a 6-year-old kid who's just diagnosed and has significant behavioral challenges.
So if you're watching, I don't know where in the world you are, but I hope that you're within 30 to 50 miles of a Center for Autism and Related related disorders, because that's an easy thing that you can call their 800 number and get on the list to get those services and make that happen. If you aren't, what you want to be looking for is a really good quality ABA program, correct?
That's
Dr.
right,
Tarbox?
absolutely. Someone who is a board-certified behavior analyst, a BCBA, with years experience supervising top quality ABA programs. And really, honestly, you probably want to get recommendations from parents, because parents, get on some good listservs, in whatever region you are. Just do a Google search for autism parent listserv or support groups, and get out there and make contacts and network with as many parents as you can. And really, I think parent reputation says a lot for an ABA agency, because parents can see through the BS, and they can tell when their kids are making progress.
I'll tell you too, there's a fairly new thing that's trending really well too, that's called Love My Provider, that you can go and look and see if some cities it's already growing exponentially, and some they're needing somebody to log on, but it's a place where parents can talk about all the different things, the dentists who does well with kids that have autism, the ABA providers who does well, so that you can kind of get some feedback from there as well. But essential that you do that, and that you not wait, and that you get a prescription that makes sense. So again, as Dr. Tarbox said, this is not something that you're going to devote 5 hours to a week. You're going to need something a little bit more intense to see that improvement. We all used to look at, when actors would get ready to do an action movie, and they go to, bulk up and get the whole cut thing, and it's, they tell all of us to make sure we get exercise 3 times a week for at least 15 minutes for heart health, but you're not going to get those kinds of muscles that they need to get for the movies in that amount of time, right? You're not even going to get that going 1 hour a day to the gym. Right. In order to make that significant of a change to your body, you got to be spending maybe 3-4 hours per day in the gym, and it's like we need to give our kids muscles. So think of it that way, and clear your schedule a little bit so that you can do some intensive, and I would encourage you. I feel the resentment about the terms, because if it gets in the way of your child getting something, then of course it would give you that sort of feeling. But as parents, we have a lot of power to go in, and when they say, well, your child is high functioning, so you're not going to get services, you can say, really, because he can't do X, Y, and Z, put it in, and we're talking about safety this week, tell them the worst safety issue that you have at home, and say it loudly, and sit down, and if you have to, sit on the floor so that they can't take you out until you get some help. And feel free to contact me so that I can find out where you are, and we can figure out whose bell we have to ring for you to get these services, because it's important. And more than likely your insurance covers it. More and more that's the case. So, but good for you for getting the diagnosis now. Now is a good time. Just don't wait. Don't sit on the resentment and wait.
That's right.
Okay, we're going to take a short break and come back with more with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, so stick with us.
Hey guys, welcome back to Smarty. Today we're going to be making homemade glow-in-the-dark bouncy balls. So let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are 2 mixing bowls, something to stir with, measuring spoons, borax, cornstarch, water, glue, and glow paint and food coloring. So step 1, you're going to take one of your measuring bowls and you're going to measure out half a teaspoon of borax, 4 tablespoons of cornstarch, and 4 tablespoons of water. Then you're going to mix that all together. I'm going to set this aside. In another bowl, I'm going to mix my glue and my glow-in-the-dark paint and any food coloring I want to use to make it a special color. I have 2 separate bowls with the mixtures in them. Now I'm going to put them together, letting them sit for the next 15 seconds, and then I'll stir them together. It's important that you let them sit for a moment before stirring so they can do their magical thing. Now that the 15 seconds is over, I'm going to stir together the mixture, making sure to stir thoroughly until I can no longer do it anymore. You'll see what I mean in a second. Now that I can no longer stir it, I'm going to start rolling around in my hands to make a ball. And voila, very own homemade bouncy ball. Woo! Well, I hope you had fun with this activity today. Until next time, rock on, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. Now, the question that we were just talking about, the parent wrote back in and said, I'm the one asking about the high functioning issue. So why does state funding not cover those with high IQ and language? This is a great question. And then they wrote back that they're in South Dakota. So I am right now, even as we speak, looking up what the legislation is in South Dakota, whether you have a mandate or not.
And I can speak to the situation in California. The experience in California actually for state funding is very similar. There's many, many families that we've wanted to work with that go to the state, they're called regional centers here in California, go to the regional center and ask for behavioral support or ask for treatment, and the child gets assessed and their IQ is too high and their language is too high, or they're deemed too high functioning essentially, to where they don't get services. And I actually don't think that's legal, but it's something the state has been getting away with for decades, and I think they're going to continue to get away with it. Now in California, we're fortunate enough to have the insurance mandate, and so now insurance companies are required by law to cover autism treatment in the state of California. And so if you have a diagnosis, it doesn't matter how high or low your IQ is or how high or low functioning you're deemed to be, you're still required by law in the state of California to fund autism treatment if you're an insurance company. So we're really lucky to have that. But that's new. That's the last year and a half. So
yeah, and I'm having issues with the site that I wanted to go to see whether you have it. And if anybody who's watching and has something, the internet that's working faster than mine is, take a look and write to me and let me know. But it's starting to come up now. I went to a different site.
And we can follow up with them after the show, too.
Yeah, we can. But okay, so I'm taking a look here. And so it is a blue state, which does not look good. And I'm clicking on it here to see what it says for South Dakota. Oh, technology on live television. But it's not looking good because it is a blue state, which looks like you don't have a mandate. Well, so here's my advice. If they're going to cover some things, then one of the things, before we had a mandate here in California, one of the things that other parents would tell other parents is that when you're going to the state funding, that thing that I was saying before about bring up the biggest safety issue that you have, and I'm not asking you to lie, let's be 100% clear about that, but when you're talking to these people, what you do is have to tell them what was going on for you in the worst moment that you've had thus far, and just don't bother telling them that that's not every moment of your life. Just leave that part of it out, because in that moment in time, you needed those services.
That's right. And, you know, if a child has displayed a particular behavior in the past, that means they are certainly capable of doing it again in the future. Hopefully they won't, obviously.
Yeah.
But you know, we do see behaviors come back. I mean, they say the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So if your child has exhibited really dangerous behavior in the past, it is possible that it'll happen again. And that is a reason to have support services to prevent that from happening again.
Yeah. And I will tell you that depending on, there are many different things you can do, and I want everybody within the sound of our voices to know that you're never alone and you're never without any resources whatsoever in this day and age. That you could be doing the trainings on ibehavioraltraining.com and be learning these techniques and teaching them to other people in your area. You're featured in some of those trainings. You could be using skills to have a curriculum to work with your child. When I think about how you started in the field of ABA, it was because a mom, and this is well before there were ABA programs everywhere and well before anybody was talking about insurance for ABA,
right.
And a mom who said, I'm here, I'm with a child, I care about this child, and I got to get something done.
That's right.
So she went to the local college and put up a sign saying, I need some people to help me with my child. And you had no plan to go into this field.
I was going to be a history professor.
And you would have been a good one too, but thank goodness this mom found you and brought you, and she started training you on how to work with her child.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And there have been stories that of this kind of thing all over the place. We have a clip that we show sometimes on the show of a young girl named Maddie, who I don't know whether she's from South Dakota, but North Dakota. I was going to say it's somewhere right around that. And the parents didn't have access, so they used skills to help Maddie.
And they got the nanny and their grandma and someone from the church.
The volunteers of the church.
Everyone in the village got together to help out.
They built their own team. So what I want you to know is there's a way. And there are some ways that are harder than others. And we aren't going to stop working until we make sure that every single family gets access to these things and gets access easily. But if you're not in the 5-foot square space that has it already and has the funding for it, you still have to find the way. And I'll happily hold your hand while you say this is really picking hard and cry about it. But there is a way, and I want you to know that. And there's also card remote services, but if insurance isn't going to cover, doing ABA the traditional way, they're not going to cover the remote services either.
Probably
more than likely.
Not. Yeah.
Although I will say this, that check with your insurance company, and you can even call the 800 number at CARD to have the contracts department here check, because we are seeing that more and more people have policies, even though their state doesn't cover it, their policy is going to go ahead and cover it because they don't want to get sued by people in that state when they're covering it in another state.
That's right. And the other thing to keep in mind is depending on where the insurance company is based, where they're headquartered, if they're headquartered in a state that does have a mandate, I think they actually do have to cover it still, even if you don't live in that state. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure.
Well, there are lots of loopholes, so don't leave a stone unturned.
You can also file a complaint, too. I mean, the process for that in each state is different, but in California, before we had the mandate, there were a number of families that actually did get coverage for treatment by just following through with the whole complaint process all the way to the top. It took them probably a year for each family, but it worked, and they did end up getting their child's treatment covered.
And there are families that paid for their treatment, filed suit, and got that money refunded.
That's
Kaiser had a $9 million suit to pay back families who said you should be covering this, and that was before the mandate.
That's right.
So, it's one of those things where you make up your mind, this is what we're doing, and you find the way. And along the way you say, I don't know how, but we're doing it anyway. So keep in touch with us. Let us know if you need some help and support along the way. Now we're going to take another break before we come back to finish out the show. Stick with us.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them.
Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, and all week long we've been talking about safety, and so I thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about safety. One of the things that I've been quoting all week long, and even last week too, because I was talking earlier about how Coach E rung a bell with me. What really rung a bell with me was about a month ago when you said, imagine that your child looked you right in the eye and said, I'm going to escape at the next possible moment. What are you going to do to prepare yourself? And I still, get kind of chills when I think about that, that really, everyone who hasn't already gone through this with their child and gone through intensive treatment to make sure that their child doesn't do that needs to hear that. We all think it's not us.
Right. Like any other really low frequency or low probability event, we all think it's not us. Nobody thinks they're going to get bit by a shark or struck by lightning. Nobody thinks they're going to get in a car accident. People didn't start wearing seatbelts until it was mandated. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because they figure, oh, it's not going to happen to me. But for the people for whom it happens to, it did happen to them. So yeah, it's. And really the difference is, for a lot of our kids on the spectrum, they just can't communicate that to you, you know? And then once they get out there on their own and they're lost, they don't have the skills to preserve themselves. So it's really, really important.
Well, and just in interviewing Romario the other day, it was so chilling to me because he had eloped once before from his mom, and it had taken them overnight to find him.
Wow.
And she had taken some measures that she thought had made it better, but they were in a store and there was something playing on the TV, and it was somebody being beaten up on the TV, and he was being beaten in the face. And Romario talked about it here with us, that it upset him and he needed to get away from it. And his mom saw what was happening and said to the store owner, can you please change the channel? She was trying to deal with it. He was melting down. She has twin 9-month-old babies. Oh, wow. So her hands were, we could all sit back and go, well, why didn't you just leave? But it takes a couple of minutes when you've got twin babies and an adult who is melting down, so, and she was trying to deal with it, but before she could deal with it, he took off, and 20 days of him being frightened. And he said, I said, well, where did you go? And he said, I ran and I ran and I ran. And he said, I ran and my feet hurt so bad. And then I was lost. I was homeless. He did not know how to get back home.
Oh my God, terrible.
And it really brings up for me all the different things that we need to empower ourselves with to be able to teach our kids. And also what it brought up for me, and we had just gone through with Dr. Nadowski in Skills some of the lessons about safety. But the truth is that there are so many lessons in Skills that are vital to our kids' survival that aren't listed under safety.
That's true.
That when Romario people gave him money so that he was able to eat a little bit, but he was severely dehydrated when they found him. But he didn't know how to answer the question, where do you live?
Oh, man.
What is your address? What is your mom's name? What is your mom's phone number? And it's something his mom, had tried working with him. But I was saying to Dr. Nadowski as she was leaving, when you don't have a curriculum, we all try. I tried to teach my son how to count to 10, and I'm a former teacher, and I thought I had skills to be able to do that, but he could never get past 3. And at a certain point, I've shared with you before, I thought maybe he's not teachable.
Right.
And his mom tried to teach him those things, but it didn't stick. And until you have a curriculum that teaches you how to teach it and get it to stick, it's probably not going to.
Right, yeah. I mean, like any other skills, safety skills can be very challenging to teach for individuals on the spectrum, whether they're children or adults. And, like any other skill, it's not, you certainly try on your own and you do your best, but oftentimes it literally takes a professional to know how to do it.
And knowing the steps that you guys do, I think it's important to talk about how much research goes into that. You guys don't just go, hey, this is what we're going to try with a kid, and this is how we'll teach it. You check to see if it's effective, and then you check it against other kids, and check that against other kids, and then you try to perfect it to be able to teach it in fewer steps, and teach it to more kids, and look at the one kid that it didn't work with and find the way to teach it to that kid. I don't think that we as parents understand, and maybe you could take a minute to talk about how much you continue to look at what you're doing and get better at it.
Sure. Well, the greatest myth, and this is something we talk about in the Lost in Public video that we produced.
And we showed that earlier.
Show it? Okay,
oh, yes. Great. We show it almost every day.
Yeah. Well, it was a lot of fun to make. But so the greatest myth is the idea that if you tell someone something and they understand it, then they're going to be able to do it when they need need to do it. Turns out that that's just false. That's actually false with typically developing folks like you and me, and it's even more false for folks on the spectrum. It turns out that you're not necessarily going to be able to behave effectively in the real life scenario if you've never had practice in the real life scenario. If you've only been explained something or told something, you're not necessarily going to be able to do it. Now, a real obvious example would be, in fact, we talk about this in the video too, would be, I could tell you how to swing a bat at a baseball, right? Does that mean you're going to be able to hit a home run? No way. What do you got to do to learn how to hit a home run? Hit lots of balls, right? Lots of practice. Same thing with shooting a basket. Same thing with social skills, right? I could tell you how to be a really engaging, interesting person, but that's not going to make you good at social interaction. You got to go interact a bunch socially, right? And get that feedback and see what works and what doesn't work. So it's exactly the same thing with safety skills. So the biggest myth is it's not good enough to show a video, to read a book about safety, to have a conversation about safety. All of those things are great, but what you have to do is get your kid to practice the real skill. At first, in role play with you is fine, that's great, but even that's not good enough because even that is basically, it's an analog form, it's not the real life situation. And so then what you need to do is put the kid in the real life situation without him knowing that he's being tested and see if he can really do it. If he can do it, great. Now test a couple more real life situations that are different and more complicated. If he can still do the skill, great, you're all set. More than likely, he's not going to be able to do the skill. And then you have to do practice in multiple different real life situations where he's got to learn to fend for himself and apply the skill in the situation in which it really needs to occur.
Yeah, and you know what makes me mad about this is that we know this and we apply this to the things that are most important, but as a society, the reason why education, I feel, is so lacking in the United States is that we pretend we don't know it when we're teaching other things, which is why so much of teaching is instructional, even at the 3rd grade level, and they show a video and they put it up on the screen, and we don't have experience-based hands-on training enough in the classroom. But we would never do that with a fire drill.
Right.
And they would never let
exactly
that fly in a fire drill, would
That's
they?
Exactly right.
Because they make the kids walk through it. And why? And when you ask them, why do we do it in a fire drill? Because we know we have to get it into their bodies.
Right.
That if you practice even, 5 times a year, walking out to the field when you hear that thing, that then when the real thing happens and you're panicking, there is some kind of memory in the muscles that you will head towards the door. You might be freaking out, but odds are that you will be more likely to make it out to the field.
And my interpretation of that exact same example is something I got from Bill Heward, who's one of the top ABA guys in the world. And he says basically anytime behavior really, really matters, anytime the consequence of behavior really, really matters to an organization, they make sure people practice the behavior. So now let's just say, like, what makes universities the most money? Football games, okay? They don't just tell football players what to do, right? They make sure they practice and they measure performance, and man, they get really good performance because it matters to the university. If their football team's losing every game, they're making less money. They're getting less financial support for the organization. But let's face it, a lot of the educational and honestly a lot of treatment situations for kids with autism, the consequences don't matter for the university, don't matter for the school district. What's the consequence for a school district if the kids in the classroom don't learn very much? There's no consequence. There's no consequence. They don't lose funding, right? They don't look bad in the media. It's just, well, okay, they have autism. I guess they have a tough time. Right.
Yeah. Well, what we can take away from this as parents, and since we're parents, we're all teachers, is that we can use this to our advantage.
That's right.
That we can make sure that we're giving those teaching opportunities that involve the person actually doing whatever the thing is.
Absolutely.
And that we can ask for that kind of learning built into our IEPs as well.
Definitely.
So that, and we can share that information with our kids' teachers and say this is something that is going to be more likely to. But yeah, I just had a moment where I was like, why do we act like we don't know that when we're teaching?
Yeah, it's amazing. And by the way, it's not just autism. There's other areas too where research has proven that if you have someone actually practice a behavior, they're more likely to do it. So they've done it with safe sex things, like practicing saying you need to use a condom, like actually having the teenagers practice doing that during training rather than just lecturing to the teenagers, produces less risky sexual behavior. Actually having them practice say no to drugs and alcohol actually decreases consumption of drugs and alcohol. You can't just lecture at the kid and bring in a police officer saying you shouldn't do drugs. Actually having them practice, what am I going to say this Saturday when my friend offers me alcohol or drugs? I need to have some things prepared to say, and I need to actually do it a few times, so that makes it more likely for me to actually do it when the time comes.
Well, it all makes great sense to me, and we're here at the end of the time, and so there's many more things that we could be talking about safety. But I gotta stop for just a second and give some programming notes, because if I haven't mentioned it already this week, we are off all next week, so you'll have to catch up on reruns. You'll have to be watching, but I really want to encourage you to do that you can go to our YouTube page and search any topic, put in a keyword, and see which videos come up. And the keywords work as efficiently as the keywords work, right? Which, you know, sometimes is great and sometimes isn't. So you might find more videos that don't have the keywords that you so be inventive in the keywords that you use. But you could put in Dr. Jonathan Tarbox and see all the different times that Dr. Tarbox has talked about whatever, you know, on a certain topic. If you want to see every time he's ever mentioned potty training, put in those two things together. And then look a little bit more generally. But we encourage you to, we hit a milestone of over 500 shows earlier this month. So there's a lot of content there, more than enough to keep you guys busy, I'm sure. But you can still participate with us on Facebook. Emily will still be here next week, but I will be out and about with my child, and I'll try to post whenever we do something fun. He's getting ready to go back to school. I got to spend some time with that child.
That's great.
Are we allowed to say congratulations to you on the show?
Sure.
All right, so are we allowed to say why we're saying
Sure.
congratulations? And so Dr. Tarbox has just found out that he's bringing another organism into the world.
That's
and so
correct.
you're about to be a proud papa times 3.
Kid number 3 on the way.
Kid number 3. We're very excited for you and
Thank
thrilled. We need a baby. I noticed that yesterday when I got to hold those twins. We need a baby around here. They bring hope. They always do. So we're very excited for you and your entire family. I want to remind all of you that we will be back here in 2 weeks on that Tuesday. We've got some exciting guests already lined up for you. I mentioned yesterday that we're going to have some for you in the coming weeks. We're going to have somebody from Betzedek, that organization that helps families to be able to do legal things like conservatorship for free. So make sure that you stay tuned to our newsletter. Make sure that you sign up for the newsletter. Check out what we're doing on Facebook. We encourage you, if you find anything here that was useful to you even once, please do me a favor and share the information with everyone else. We're not looking for you to make a donation or to pay for this feed, but the more people who watch, the more possible it is that we get to stay here and that we get to provide more information. So all we ask is that you share it wisely. So there's my soapbox for the day. I am so looking forward to seeing you guys in just under 2 weeks back here. And I hope that until then, you find all kinds of exciting things to do and that you send us messages about what you want and that you give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.